Today we are going to discuss about the second chapter of object-oriented analysis and designs. So this is an introduction topic of your second unit. Like this chapter consisting of elaboration and domain models. Under this elaboration and domain models, the main objective of this second chapter is elaborating the phases of the software development lifecycle models, and at the same time these domain models will deal towards the what exactly the domains that we are preferring to develop the projects. Based on that problem statement, in this chapter we are going to discuss how to build the models, and under this the today's topic is interaction requirements and emphasizes, and the second one is the core OOAD skills. So we'll learn these two topics in today's lecture. Coming to the first one, interaction 1 requirements and emphasizes. What is these requirements under the phases? So when we talk about the software development lifecycle models, there are 5 stages. So the first stage is an analysis, the second stage is an design, the third stage is a code development, and the fifth stage is a testing, and the last stage is an deployment. So when we come across all these stages, the first and foremost stage is an analysis part. So what makes this analysis? What kind of analysis can be done by a developer? So once the stakeholder, the end user, is interacting the developer is to take the inputs from the user. Based on that inputs, the developer will start developing the project. So coming here, the requirements is related to the what are to be enhanced towards the project, towards the need of the user. So it comes across, initially they will collect the details of the whatever the name of the developer and the details of the group members, like what is a total project problem statement of the project, and then what is a vision statement summarizing your project. So these first and foremost requirement will defines the overall information collecting and overall framework of your problem statement. As we know that before going to start developing any kind of project, we need in development, the domain knowledge is much more important. So the developer should be clear that taking the information from the user, what kind of domains are needed, and based on that domains, they need to collect the details of each and every requirement, whether it is a technical requirement and it is a non-technical requirement. So all these things will be collected at the stage of first iteration. So we'll have an n number of iterations depend upon the size and complexity of the projects. So according to that iterations, the first stage of an iteration, what exactly they are going to collect the information. And here they are going to discuss about what is a group or a team members that they are going to develop the project, what are the members group or size of the team, and then what are the major features list that is helping to start their work, like what is a vision statement, and they are going to perform the whatever the types of requirements that are needed, like what are the software requirements and hardware requirements and whatever the manual requirements, everything can be collected under the iteration 1. So not only that, they will be priorly planning about the architecture. So when we talk about the domain requirements, what exactly the architecture that is needed to build a project. Now it may be a type of hardware project or it may be a type of software project. Depend upon that, they need to build an architecture for that. Regarding that, what kind of frameworks are needed, what kind of supporting libraries are needed, what are the tools that are involved. Before priorly going to start the project, they need to install based on the configuration of the machine, whether this machine is supporting to enhance that project or to build that project. So all these kind of discussions and all this kind of information will be collected at the time of the first iteration. So not only that, they'll be discussing about how to install the and run the software which are required, and what are the supportive platforms that are needed. So everything can be collected at the time of first iteration. So under this project, the first iteration is going to briefly describe, and they'll discuss the overall information which is needed to develop any particular project. Coming to the second one, core OOAD skills. As we know that object-oriented analysis and design. So we are going to design and analysis for an object-oriented type of whatever the product or whatever the project it is. So when we talk about these object-oriented analysis, object-oriented techniques, so if you talk about a standalone programming language like a C, so in the C also we can go for a designing. As we know that flowchart is one of the design which is helpful to develop the code and to do the analysis before going to start writing a C program. At the same time, when we talk about the ER model, entity relationship model, in terms of databases, this model is helpful to analyze the overall database which is present in the system. So there are the different kinds of techniques to design and to analyze the code as well as the data. So here, why we are going for the object oriented? As we know, these object oriented programming languages are platform independent. We can enhance this and we can support, we can interact with another whatever the piece of code. So this is an enhanceable coding techniques when we compare to the C programming languages or scripting programming languages. So before going to understand object oriented, we should be clear that this comes under the type of unstructured, there is a semi-structured programming languages. So what are the different types of languages that we are having? So first we have to briefly understand what are the types of languages that we are having. So initially, if you talk about any type of when we talk about software, there are various types of softwares are there. Three kinds of softwares. One is a system software. The second one is a application software. And the third one is a utility software. So software is nothing but a group of instructions that everyone are familiar. So to perform any machine, to make any machine to work, we require this piece of software. And these softwares are of three types. One is a system software, application software and utility software. When we talk about the system software, an example is an operating system, which is a mediator between the machine and the user, and it will convert the high level language to the low level language. At the same time, it will control the internal overall organization and the structure of the machine. So when we talk about the application softwares, these application softwares are again divided into three. That is nothing but languages, package. So that are again divided into language and packages. So when we say the word called application software, application is nothing but usage of area. In which area we are specifically using these particular softwares. So these are just like an desktop applications. So if you talk about any institution, educational institution, if they have their own software which is not an open source, which is called as an desktop application. If you go to any hospital, in the hospital they have their own software, so which is called as application software. So regarding to that particular specific organization, if they are maintaining their own software which is not an online, then we'll call it as an application software. And these application softwares are of type that may be an language or it may be a packages. Now when it comes to the languages, again they are divided into three types. One is a structured language, second one is a semi-structured, and the last one is a unstructured. When it comes to the structure, everyone knows that C is a programming language which is a structured programming language, and it follows the structure from top to bottom, and it is an platform dependent. So we can't enhance the code and we can't integrate with the some other platforms or some other programming. So there are some restrictions for the C programming. When we talk about the semi-programming languages, semi-structured programming languages, all the object-oriented programming languages will comes under the semi-structure. Like whenever we need, we can go for enhancing the code, we can add a module, we can delete a module which is not affected to the existing code. But in case of structured programming language, whenever you go for doing any modification in a specific line, we need to come from top to bottom. We have to change and we have to modify from top to bottom. But when we talk about the semi-structure, all the object-oriented programming languages like C++, Java, or if you go for the Python, all these are the object-oriented programming languages where if you go for enhancing, if you go for modifying the code, no matter at which stage we are going to modify, it is not going to be effect for leftover code. But when you talk about the unstructured, these are the scripting programming languages. Script programming languages are nothing but are HTML, CSS, JavaScript. All these are the scripting programming languages which are helpful to develop any web application or scripting pages. So we are going to especially focus on our object-oriented programming designs. So when we develop any project by using these semi-structured programming languages, no matter whether we are using a code for a C++ or you are using a Java or you are using a Python, if the project or a product is developed with the help of these semi-structured programming languages, before going to develop that code, we need to do the analysis, the requirements. So what are the software requirements that is need to develop that particular project, and then based on that we have to go for designing, and that design is going to be converted into the code. So between these analysis and coding, we are going to discuss the overall subject, that is nothing but the design for object oriented analysis. So this is under this topic we are going to understand what are the major key skills that are needed to understand this particular object oriented analysis and design. So coming to this, these are the major elements that we can say. The first one is an object. So the object is nothing but it's a real world element in an object oriented environment and may have a physical or a conceptual existence. Each object has identity that distinguish it from other objects in a system, like behavior that represents externally visible activities performed by an object in terms of changing in its state. So here the object can be modeled according to the needs of an application. So these objects can be included according to the type of an application. Again, the word application is nothing but depend upon usage of area. So for which particular area you are developing this object oriented project. So based on that application, these objects are designed. According to the objects, we can have a relationship between the objects, and then we can have a relationship between the classes. Then we can develop the designs based on the objects and the classes. So examples of real-time objects are, that is a car, customer, it may be a thing or it may be a physical entity.